Hello students. So I am back with another video related to cytology or cell biology. So in the previous video we had discussed about the features of eukaryotic cells, and we had discussed about the cell membrane structure and the functions of cell membrane. So the main functions we discussed were transport across cell membrane. How transport takes place across cell membrane. That was the main thing we discussed. Now, today in this video, we are going to start the discussion about the various cell organelles that are present in an eukaryotic cell. So, whenever we think of an eukaryotic cell, the first thing that comes to our mind is nucleus, because this is actually the distinguishing feature. If we think logically, this is the distinguishing feature between a prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell, because in a prokaryotic cell there is nothing called nucleus. Definitely chromatin material is there, DNA is there, but they are not enclosed within a membrane. So no membrane is there which can enclose the DNA. So that kind of chromatin material which is found in say bacteria, they are called nucleoid. Nucleoid. If I write down, then it becomes nucleoid. In bacteria it's nucleoid. Let me write down. Nucleoid in bacteria. Okay, but we are studying about eukaryotic cells where instead of nucleoid there is nucleus. What is the difference? In nucleus there is a definite limiting membrane. Nuclear membrane is present. Now, if we want to study about a structure, we should first study about its origin, about its discovery, because you know the contribution of scientists. Definitely we cannot ignore them. They have discovered all these things. That is why we can come to know about these things. So we should definitely remember Robert Brown, who was the scientist to discover presence of nucleus in eukaryotic cells. So children, please remember the name Robert Brown, a very important name. And where did he discover this? He found nucleus when he was studying cells of orchids, leaves of orchids. Then he found this kind of a structure. Now, where from nucleus will originate? It will originate from pre-existing nucleus, nucleus which is already there in a cell, because we know a cell undergoes division. So from the mother nucleus, daughter nuclei are formed. So that is why, see, it's mentioned over here that from pre-existing nuclei, new nuclei are produced. Reason I told you, cell division. Coming to the structure. Now when we discuss the structure of nucleus, I should definitely show you a picture of nucleus. So as you can see on my screen, this is the picture of nucleus, structure of nucleus. You can see it is a double membrane bound structure. If I zoom it on, it's a double membrane bound structure, and the membrane is a trilaminar membrane. By now you should be knowing what is a trilaminar membrane. Protein, lipid, protein membrane. Two membranes are there. The outer one is called ectokaryotheca. the inner one is called endokaryotheca, and they are separated. You can see there is a space in between, and the space is called perinuclear space. Perinuclear cisternae also you may say. Perinuclear space or perinuclear cisternae. And you can see at places the two membranes have joined, right? And that creates pores in the membrane. So see, there is a labeling called nuclear pore. So what is a nuclear pore? It is a gap. It is formed when the ectokaryotheca and endokaryotheca, they become joined. Then this nuclear pore is formed. Okay, got it everyone? Now, this nuclear pore, it has got a special feature. This nuclear pore has got a cylindrical protein, cylindrical in shape, and it is called annulus. It is called annulus. Okay, this annulus, it extends both into the nucleus, inside the nucleus, as well as outside the nucleus. Outside the nucleus, what do we get? We find cytoplasm outside the nucleus. So this annulus protein, it spans the nuclear membrane, we may say. Better to say, it spans the nuclear pore. Okay, let me see whether I can show you a picture. Yes, I have it. So this is basically annulus protein. It is a cylindrical protein, and this is the pore. See, it is spanning the pore, and the pore and the annulus together, they are called nuclear pore annulus complex. What is its significance? Significance is, in the previous video I told you that cell membrane, it has got pores, or it has got protein channels. Through those protein channels, substances can come in or go out. Same here. These pore annulus complexes, they serve as a passage, so that certain substances that are formed within the nucleus can migrate to cytoplasm. Now, what do we mean by these certain substances that we are going to discuss as we proceed? But till here, pore annulus complex function, I hope it's clear to you. Okay? Now, one by one we shall discuss the parts. So, after nuclear pore comes the matrix of nucleus. So there is a ground substance or matrix which is called the nucleoplasm. It's not labeled over here, but the matrix, this over here, this matrix is called nucleoplasm. What does it contain? It contains, as you can see, a network of chromatin fibers. Thin fibers are there, chromatin fibers, and it also contains certain proteins. Those proteins, they act as enzymes, and the enzymes are nothing but those enzymes which help in replication, transcription, translation. So DNA polymerases, RNA polymerases, these are the enzymes that are found in the nuclear matrix. Okay? Now, after that, coming to chromatin reticulum. Now, these chromatin fibers, they can be of two types. If you see the slide over here, you see chromatin reticulum, it is of two types, euchromatin and heterochromatin. Euchromatin is the metabolically active chromatin material. Now, what do we mean by this? metabolically active chromatin material means euchromatin takes part in replication, transcription, translation. That is why metabolically active. These are all metabolic processes. Enzyme catalyzed processes. So these are examples of metabolism. Okay? And euchromatin contains a considerable amount of DNA, and as a result it must be having the genes also. So euchromatin is the region where, or this is that part of the chromatin which takes part in crossing over. Crossing over means where the genetic segments are interchanged. So euchromatin is that part. It is lightly stained part and it takes part in crossing over. Coming to heterochromatin, see it's already written, does not take part in crossing over, conserves genes. How does it conserve gene? Because exchange of genetic segment is not taking place. Heterochromatin is the darkly stained chromatin generally found near the centromere of a chromosome. Generally found near the centromere of a chromosome. There we find heterochromatin. Okay? And then the last part of nucleus, which is nucleolus. Now, a chromosome has got two sister chromatids. We have learnt in previous classes. A chromosome has two sister chromatids which are joined at centromere. Now, the centromeric region of a chromosome is also called primary constriction. What is it called? It is called primary constriction. Okay. Now, apart from primary constriction, there can be another constriction which is called secondary constriction. So, nucleolus, it is basically originating from the secondary constriction, and that is why secondary constriction is also called, if I write down, it is also called NOR. What does this mean? Nucleolar organizer region. Secondary constriction, also known as nucleolar organizer region or organizing region, because it helps in the origin of nucleolus. Okay. Now, nucleolus itself has got many parts. So, let us see the parts of nucleolus. See this picture. This is an exclusive picture of nucleolus. What are the parts present? See, nucleolus itself has got a matrix, and this matrix is called pars amorpha. Pars amorpha. If I write down, matrix is known as pars amorpha. It will take few minutes to load the picture. So, I am writing down over here pars amorpha. This is the nuclear matrix, and within the matrix you can see there are certain fibrils are present. These are all protein fibrils. They remain scattered here and there. Okay. Next comes, you see, the matrix also contains numerous granules. Numerous granules are present, which is called, this granular part, see it's written granules, it is called pars granulosa. granulosa. Pars granulosa. These are nothing but nucleoprotein granules. Okay, and then comes the perinucleolar chromatin. Why such a name? Peri means border, peri means surrounding. So surrounding the nucleolus, you see chromatin fibers are present. So these are nothing but chromatin fibers. They also have some amount of DNA is there. In the perinucleolar chromatin, some amount of DNA can be found. Okay, so this is the perinucleolar chromatin. Okay, and it helps in, what does this help in? This perinucleolar chromatin basically helps in ribosomal RNA synthesis, rRNA synthesis. Actually, the main function of nucleolus is to produce rRNA, ribosomal RNA. Ribosomal RNA, along with some other proteins which are called histones, they form ribosomes. We will discuss this in the later half. So basic function of nucleolus as a whole is formation of rRNA, ribosomal RNA. So this is all about the structure of nucleus. What is the function? What is the function of nucleus? If I ask you, what can we conclude? So function of nucleus will be, first and foremost, it has got chromatin fibers. That means it has got DNA, which means it has got genes. So genes encode for proteins in our body, and those proteins are expressed in some sort of a character. Okay, and then comes the nuclear pore, the annular pore complex, which helps in movement of substances between nucleus and cytoplasm. That is another function. Third function is synthesis of ribosomal RNA. Not only that, it also synthesizes ribosomal subunits. Ribosomal RNA and ribosomal subunits. So these are the main functions of nucleus. I hope I could make you understand the functions of nucleus. Now, after nucleus, another very important cell organelle we will discuss, and that is ribosomes. So, ribosomes, which are also called, you see on my screen it's written, they are also called Claude particles or Palade particles. Why so? Because Claude was the scientist to observe ribosomes in a cell first, and Palade later elaborated on the structure of ribosomes. So that is why they can be called Palade particles, they can be called Claude particles. Okay. Now ribosomes, they origin from the ribosomal RNA. Just now I told you, ribosomal RNA formed in nucleolus and proteins. So these two together, they club and they form ribosomes. Now each ribosome has either got a spherical structure, spherical or oval shape, and there is one large subunit, as you can see it's there on the screen, and one small subunit. Now if I show you a picture, See in this picture, this is the large subunit and this is the small subunit. The bigger one and this is the smaller one. Now, and both of them you can see they are formed of RNA and proteins. Now the bigger one, the larger subunit, and the smaller subunit, generally in a cell they remain scattered. They do not remain together. They only come together when they participate in translation. What is translation? Translation is the formation of proteins from RNA. That process is called translation, and that process requires ribosomal subunits. So when the process starts, these two subunits, they come together, but they will come together only when the intracellular magnesium concentration is quite high. So magnesium ions are important to bring the two subunits together. Okay. Now, the larger subunit has got 3 sites. So if I go back to the slide, the larger subunit has 3 sites: amino acyl site, peptidyl site, exit site. Amino acyl site, where the amino acids come and sit during translation. Peptidyl site will be, one amino acid comes and sits on the A site, amino acyl site. Another amino acid will come and sit on the peptidyl site. And like this, more and more amino acids will be coming and they will be joining with one another. Ultimately, there will be a series of amino acids, a chain of amino acids, which means that is the primary structure of protein. Linear sequence of amino acids will be formed. So that is the primary structure of protein that will be formed, and that will ultimately come out through the exit site. So 3 sites are there on the large subunit of ribosome. So next comes composition. We have already discussed ribosomal RNA together with histones, they produce ribosomes. Now, in case of prokaryotes, the size of ribosomes is 70S. Now, what is this S? When I say S, what do I mean by that? S means, I'll write down, sedimentation coefficient. S is the unit of sedimentation coefficient, and it is named after the scientist Swedberg. So 70S means 70 Swedberg units. Okay? And the eukaryotic ribosomes are a bit larger in size, and they are 80S or 80 Swedberg. Now when I say 70 Swedberg, it has got 2 subunits, one large and one small. So the larger one is 50S and the smaller one is 30S. Now don't try to add them up. That 50 plus 30 comes to 80. Why in the slide it's written 70? No, it doesn't happen like that. Size of the larger subunit is 50S. Size of the smaller subunit is 30S. Don't try to sum them up, okay? And 80S means the larger subunit will be 60S and the smaller one will be 40S. So this is eukaryotic ribosome. Where do we find ribosomes in a cell? Any cell which will be producing proteins, because the function, as you see, the function of ribosome I have highlighted with red ink. The function is synthesis of proteins. So whichever cell will produce proteins, ribosomes will be abundantly found over there. Like you see it's written liver, pancreas, any kind of endocrine cell, because most of the hormones are peptide in nature, proteins in nature. So the hormone secreting cells, the endocrine cells, must be having ample amount of ribosomes so that they can produce the proteins. Okay? And in case of prokaryotes, what happens? In the cytoplasm, they remain scattered here and there, or if I show you the picture, they can be attached to an RNA. See, they are attached to an RNA, and this structure is called polyribosome or polysome. Polyribosome or polysome. Okay, so this is all about ribosome. Now, why did we discuss this? Because of this, the one that we are going to discuss now. Endoplasmic reticulum, a very important cell organelle. Endoplasmic reticulum is a very important cell organelle. Why? Because for a cell to function properly, I will show you one picture. 3 cell organelles should work in tandem. 3 cell organelles should work in tandem, and that is see this picture. Here I have shown this is endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, this is Golgi complex, and then ultimately these vesicles you see, they form the lysosomes. So 3 cell organelles: endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi complex, lysosomes. These 3, they work together. They work in tandem, and that is why it is called GERL system. Golgi, endoplasmic reticulum, lysosome system. So in short, GERL system. So how do they work? Let me give you an overview. See, if this is the endoplasmic reticulum, it's called rough ER because it has ribosomes on its surface. That makes the surface rough. So endoplasmic reticulum, it synthesizes proteins. Now, from endoplasmic reticulum, the proteins travel to the Golgi complex, where the proteins are modified and packaged. Suppose you order something online. Okay? When it comes to your home, does the delivery person, hands over directly the thing that you ordered for? No. The thing that you have ordered for, it is first wrapped up in a packet. If it's a big thing, it will be then boxed. There will be boxes. So which means packaging is an important part. Right? So endoplasmic reticulum, it produces the raw material. That raw material goes to Golgi. Golgi modifies the raw material, packages it, and then gives it to lysosome. Now lysosome, what will it do? If it finds that it doesn't require something, okay, with the help of these proteins, it will digest that undesirable substance. If you remember, in the previous video, we had discussed phagocytosis, where a solid particle is engulfed by the cell and then it is digested by lysosome. How is it possible? Lysosome must be having something which will digest that undesirable thing, that solid thing. Not only undesirable, it can be food also. So, those substances are basically the proteins that are modified in Golgi and sent to lysosome. So, you see the three cell organelles, they are working with one another. So that is why it's called GERL system. Now in this GERL system, the first thing that we are going to discuss is endoplasmic reticulum. Endoplasmic reticulum, it was discovered by Porter and Thomson. Where it is originating from, it's still uncertain. It may be from cell membrane, maybe from nuclear membrane. Structure, if we discuss, endoplasmic reticulum has a trilaminar membrane. It's a double membrane structure, trilaminar membrane. Trilaminar means PLP, protein, lipid, protein. And there are three types of structures found: tubules, cisternae and vesicles. So let me go back to the pictures. It will be easier for you. This is Golgi. So these are the cisternae of endoplasmic reticulum. You can see the cisternae, how do they look like? They are tubular structures. Tubular structures. Okay? The cisternae, they are wide, they are flat, they are tubular. And on the surface of cisternae, ribosomes can be present, which makes the cisternae rough. And these cisternae, since they attach the ribosomes, how do they do so? On their surface, they have some special proteins. They have some special proteins which are called ribophorins. Ribophorins are proteins which help in the attachment of ribosomes to the cisternae. There are two types of ribophorins, ribophorin 1, ribophorin 2. So, these ribophorin 1 and 2, they help in the attachment of ribosomes. Okay, so this is all about cisternae. Another kind is tubule. Now these tubules, these are elongated and they are branched. Unlike cisternae, cisternae are not branched, but the tubules are branched. Okay, and then comes the vesicles, which are either spherical or they can be oval. Okay, and they can be also called microsomes. So cisternae, tubules, vesicles. How do they work? Cisternae, with the help of ribosomes, produces the proteins. Okay. Now these cisternae, they are more available, more abundant in rough endoplasmic reticulum. Two types of endoplasmic reticulum are there, rough and smooth. Rough endoplasmic reticulum, they have more and more cisternae because they have ribosomes. And RER, basically its main function is to synthesize proteins. And there is SER also, smooth endoplasmic reticulum. So smooth endoplasmic reticulum, they contain abundant tubules. Tubules do not have ribosomes on the surface, so the surface is smooth. What is their function? Their function is to synthesize fats, synthesize lipids. That is their function. So two types of endoplasmic reticulum has got two functions. Now whatever they produce, whether it's proteins, whether it's fats, those things will be transferred to the vesicles. Okay, and these vesicles later they can transform into lysosomes. these vesicles, they can transform into lysosomes, or they can transfer the proteins or the lipids that are formed to the Golgi complex. So this is how endoplasmic reticulum mainly works. Other than this, there are some more important functions, like if you closely observe the diagram, if such a network of tubule and cisternae is present, it can give some amount of rigidity to the cell. Otherwise, inside the cell, the interior of the cell is very fluid. It has got cytoplasm, so it will be very fluid. Presence of this cisternae tubules, it gives somewhat a shape, somewhat a skeleton framework to the cell. And that is the reason endoplasmic reticulum is also known as cytoskeleton of the cell. Cytoskeleton of the cell. So if I show you the slide, see, it's written cytoskeleton, and then it is also written intracellular circulatory system. Now why so? So if I go back to the picture, see, this particular cisternae, this network, it is attached to the nuclear membrane also, and it is attached to the cell membrane also. So any substance from nucleus can come out into the cytoplasm through the cisternae and can go out of the cell, or any substance from outside the cell can come into the cell, and through the cisternae can reach up to the nucleus. So it is as if it's acting as a transport system. Circulatory system in our body, what is the function? Transport of gases, transport of nutrients, transport of hormones, enzymes. So that is why endoplasmic reticulum has been compared with circulatory system of the cell, intracellular circulatory system, because it helps in transport of substances into and out of the cell. Okay, so these are the main functions of endoplasmic reticulum. Now the next comes Golgi complex. That is the next structure. So now Golgi complex it has got. Now why the name Golgi? First of all, because it was discovered by Camillo Golgi. Camillo Golgi. It was first discovered by Camillo Golgi. See, it's written over here. Camillo Golgi first discovered it. Okay. Now, Camillo Golgi, he discovered the Golgi complex in the nerve cells. And he saw that Golgi complex is also bound by two membranes, and the membranes have a protein-lipid-protein structure. And it has got 4 types of structures. See, tubules, cisternae, vesicles, and vacuoles. Okay. Now, going back to the picture. So, these are the cisternae. Okay. These are the tubules which are interconnected. Cisternae are not interconnected. Now, within the cisterna singular, cisternae plural. So, within the cisterna, the space is called lumen. And each cisterna, if you observe carefully, suppose this one, it has got a convex face and a concave face. The convex face is called cis face, and the concave face is called the trans face. What happens is, from the endoplasmic reticulum, materials first come to the cis face, that is the convex face. Then it travels to the trans face, which is the concave face. Okay, and when it is being transferred from the cis to the trans phase, modifications can be done. Now those proteins or those lipids which Golgi gets, Golgi transfers it to the secretory vesicles, or yes, to the vacuoles. At first to the vacuoles. Vacuoles will store them temporarily. Some kind of modification packaging will take place in the vacuole, and from the vacuoles from the end of the cisternae will be pinched off and will be secreted in the form of vesicles. Okay, so this is how Golgi works. Cisternae receives the materials, kind of processes it. From the ends of cisternae, vacuoles are pinched off. Vacuoles, they ultimately form secretory vesicles. Why the name secretory vesicle? Because these vesicles rupture and release the secretion. The secretion can be a protein in the form of enzyme or hormone. Secretion can be a lipid in the form of hormones, steroid hormones, sterols. Okay? Now, these secretions, these proteinaceous hormones, enzymes, especially the enzymes, proteinaceous enzymes, they can be transferred to another structure, and that is lysosomes. So this is the picture of lysosome. So what happens is, ultimately the secretions, the proteinaceous enzymes, they go to lysosomes. On the slide you see lysosomes. It was discovered by Christian de Duve. Name of the scientist is important. And unlike the ones that we have been discussing so far, endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi, nucleus, unlike those, lysosomes are single membrane bound. There is only one membrane, not two membranes. But that one membrane is a PLP membrane, protein lipid protein membrane. And lysosomes, it contains enzymes like phosphatases, sulfatases, proteases. Okay. Now lysosomes exhibit a kind of variation in its morphology, in its structure. And this phenomenon of variation of morphology in lysosomes is called polymorphism. Polymorphism means existence of more than one kind of a structure. So there are basically three kinds of lysosomes: primary lysosome, secondary lysosome, residual body. Primary lysosomes are the ones which are newly pinched from the Golgian vesicles. Because I told you lysosomes are formed from endoplasmic reticulum vesicles or Golgi vesicles. So these are the nascent ones, the newly formed ones. Now, when a solid thing, solid particle enters the cell, what happens is that solid particle, it joins with the primary lysosome and forms secondary lysosome. See, phagosome contains the solid food. It joins with the primary lysosome and forms the secondary lysosome. And the secondary lysosome, then it has got these enzymes, acid phosphatases, sulfatases. So these enzymes, they digest the food, the solid food. Okay, and this is called heterophagy. Heterophagy. So see, heterophagy I have written over here. Heterophagy. That means outside solid food particle, it is being digested within the cell. So it is kind of intracellular digestion. Very, very important function. Please remember these two functions which I have highlighted in blue ink. extracellular digestion, intracellular digestion. So secondary lysosomes, they perform intracellular digestion. How? By heterophagy. That means something from outside is coming and is being digested. It may happen that the cell itself has grown old. Functionality has decreased. What to do in that case? Lysosomes automatically sense that and they start secreting. The membrane of the lysosomes rupture. The enzymes, acidic enzymes, come out into the cytoplasm, and those acidic enzymes starts digesting the various parts of the cell itself, which means lysosome is basically killing the cell in which it itself is residing. Basically, it's committing suicide. It's killing itself, the cell in which it resides. So that is why lysosomes are often called suicidal bags. I will write down. They are called suicidal bags. Okay, so these are the two most important functions of lysosomes. Now, whatever they are digesting, whatever they are trying to digest, everything will not be digested. Something will remain undigested, and those undigested things will be stored in the residual body. So if I show you the picture, this is, suppose, a vacuole, lysosomal vacuole. It may be a secondary lysosome, and this is a residual body where the undigested materials are kept, undigested materials are placed. Okay, so this is all about lysosome. How will the undigested material be given out of the cell? I have discussed in the previous video by ephagy. So if you want to know what is ephagy, please refer to the previous video. Okay, so today we have discussed a lot of topics, children. Okay, we have discussed about nucleus, ribosomes, and the GERL system. Very, very important part. Okay, so this is all for today's video. In the next video, I'll be uploading some more lectures on cell biology. This video became a little bit long because, as you see, cell biology is a huge chapter. So many things have to be covered. Okay, so that is why the video got a little bit long. Have patience, listen carefully. If you have any doubt, you can write in the comment section. Okay, thank you, students. See you in the next video.